Does this any different than regular ones?
Yeah. Yeah, they taste better.
Ever since I had fish really? All right. So Kip stepped away. I saw him walking away. Is it just a second to come back? Kip?
Yes.
All right, we're ready to go back in. Thank you. All right, we'll call the meeting back into public session. We were in executive session to receive legal advice on a personnel matter and legal advice on school transfers, and no action was taken. All right, item 9, action items, High Point Academy amendment. Kristen?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. Our first amendment today is from High Point Academy, and joining us from High Point, I believe, none of them are on yet. They should be on. They're locked out of their Zoom account. Should be, is Khalil on?
Yes.
Okay, should I go ahead with the second amendment instead while we wait for them to join, or
Sure.
would that be easier? Because
Yes.
they're having some IT issues.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So we'll go ahead with our Liberty STEAM amendment. With us today in person is Dr. Trevor Ivy, Liberty's Chief of Staff, and we welcome him and thank him for joining us today. And on Zoom, we have Dr. Khalil Graham, Liberty's Executive Director, and they're both available to answer any questions. The mission of the school is that Liberty STEAM Charter School works to provide all students with equal access to a world-class K-12 education in an academically rigorous and student-centered learning environment, creating graduates who will be thoughtful and engaged citizens, prepared to take on the leadership challenges of the 21st century. Liberty opened in the 2021-2022 school year, providing equitable access to high-quality education to kindergarten and first grade students. The school's plan included the addition of 1 grade level per year until serving grades K-12 at capacity. The First Amendment. Liberty is requesting to add 4th grade in addition to 3rd grade during the 2023-24 school year. Currently, Liberty STEAM is slated to add only 3rd grade in the 2023-24 school year. The school will continue to use the 2-teacher model in grades K-2, and the student-teacher ratio will remain at 12:1. After the 2023-24 school year, 1 grade level will be added per year as indicated on the updated enrollment projection form included in your packet. The Second Amendment is that the school is also requesting to increase its enrollment from 96 students per grade level to 150 students per grade level beginning in the 2023-24 school year. When the fully enrolled school opened last August, it had an additional 200 students on the wait list for admission. Of the 161 available K-2 seats for the upcoming 2022-23 school year, there are already 184 students on the wait list. Liberty has proven its ability to open smoothly even during a pandemic, and its preliminary data suggests positive student growth. Liberty measures its effectiveness within 3 areas: college and career readiness, operational excellence, and mission alignment, all of which are detailed in the memo you received. The Liberty STEAM Board of Directors plans to lease a portion of land from Aldersgate Methodist Church on Alice Drive, 1.2 miles from the current campus on Church Street. Modular classrooms will be added to the site to accommodate the additional students should the Board of Trustees approve both of the proposed amendments. In the 2023-24 school year, students in grades K through 12 will remain at the current campus on School Street, and students in grades 3 through 4 will attend Aldersgate temporary site on Alice Drive. Future plans involve the construction of a second permanent Liberty STEAM campus located on land purchased at McCrae's and Lewis Road, which is 1.5 miles from the Campus 1 on School Street. Once the new building is complete, Campus 1 will remain at School Street and Campus 2 will be located at McCrae Lewis, within 4 miles driving time of each other. Ideally, the school would like to be in the new facility for the 2026-27 school year. Liberty STEAM does have documented parent demand for the school's expansion. Construction of the second campus would involve a future amendment. Internal finance staff have reviewed current financial statements and budget projections provided in detail. Liberty STEAM is projected to finish each of the next 4 years with a small fund balance, but will see an exponential increase in each subsequent year due to growth. It's important to note that a strong community support and local donations have been received. The school has a healthy cash reserve to maintain current operating expenditures. It is staff recommendation that both amendments be approved, adding 4th grade in the 2023-24 school year and increasing the enrollment cap from 96 to 150 students for each grade level, also beginning in the 2023-24 school year. Staff recommendation is approval.
Are there any questions for Kristen?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept both amendments as presented by staff.
There's a second? Okay. Now that there's a second, we'll open it up for board discussion.
If I may say to the school leadership, congratulations on parent demand and the signs of improvement. I think that's one of the greatest selling points for charter schools is when there's parent demand and they show, especially on a formative, an assessment like MAP that shows, I was thinking of the word for the test where they change the questions based on whether you got the one before it right or wrong. Anyway, to see the growth is really great.
Mr. Chairman, is this an opportunity for, you're going to speak.
Trevor, would you come up?
Yeah, we can ask each other and ask.
Yes.
Trent. Okay.
Adaptive. That's the way I'm looking for. Adaptive.
Yeah.
To show progress on an adaptive assessment.
Thank you so much for coming, and I'm sure you're going to address us. It's not a question, but I was seeking a comment on this. Congratulations, number one. But on that you're the only charter school in South Carolina to be included in both the Charter School Growth Fund and the New Schools Venture Fund portfolio. Can you just tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. First want to say good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to the other board directors. Thank you for entertaining this amendment request. I'm joined by my colleague, my boss, Dr. Graham, who is traveling at the moment, but he's joining us on Zoom. Yes, indeed, we are proud to be a part of both the Charter School Growth Fund and the New School Venture Fund portfolio. Making us the only charter school in South Carolina that has the distinction of being included in both portfolios. With that comes a significant amount of philanthropic funding that has been designated after an extensive review process for the school, demonstrating that it has not only community demand, other things that you're considering here today for our amendment, but more importantly, the capacity to scale up. And so I think what we would want to emphasize to you is that it's very uncommon for historically, if you look at other schools that are in either portfolio, that they get that distinction before they open their doors. And so Liberty was fortunate to prove that capacity before we actually open on the first day of school.
That is great. And I love what you included, the long piece with all the economics, the budget. And let me ask you, so under private funds that, referencing 1920, is that the 450,000? Is that pertinent to the portfolios or?
No, ma'am,
tell me.
that, and I'm definitely going to defer to Dr. Graham, who is helping me with the finance questions, but that allocation is through private community donations, the 450,000. Dr. Graham, anything you want to add to that?
That's very impressive. That is so impressive. And you anticipate it going up, I can see, in some years.
Yes,
I don't
ma'am.
know how everyone in the country does, I'm sure, but.
Yeah. We, of course, it's no secret, we have the support of the Philanthropic Foundation through the Quixote Club, the Quixote Foundation, which serves as the main philanthropic arm of Liberty STEAM. But that funding that comes from Charter School Growth Fund and New School Venture Fund, and eventually we're proud to announce that we are one of 96 schools in the Diverse Charter Schools Coalition, the only one that we know of in South Carolina. While there's no funding tied to that just yet, it's coming.
I'd love to hear, are you saying he might have something to add to this?
Yes.
Dr. Graham, please go ahead and speak, please.
Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to add to what Trevor said. The way we look at our philanthropic funds is we have them split into 3 buckets. We have grants that are given by government entities or foundations, which we have considerable that have come in the last few years. Private large donors, which we do have some dockets that have given in the 6-figure amount, and we continue to build a relationship with. And we also have small local donations, which we do through community gatherings and different opportunities. So those are the 3 main streams that you would find within our philanthropic funds. We also have a significant line of credit from our local bank through our financial strength.
Well, congratulations on all of that. And the other question I had was pertinent to transportation. I'm looking at the 2 entries in here, 25,000, just over, and 10,000. How is that transportation effort going? Because I know that's a significant issue for this whole paradigm.
Yes, and I will start, and Dr. Graham can add on to it. We have a select few scholars, and of course, we build great relationships with our families. And so in our charter contract, we made the promise to our families in seeking out through those relationship building processes that if we've identified any families that have a barrier with transportation, that we would be working out alternative transportation plans in one of 2 ways. One is through gas cards directly, and the second is through carpool options. We have about 10 scholars that we know of that we are supporting in one of those 2 ways. We haven't lost any scholars this year due to transportation, which one of our organizational goals is to measure persistence, which is the number of scholars that start with us on day 1 and are still here with us today. And that number right now is at 93%. Our organizational goal is 90%.
And have you noticed any interest in corporate people where they can brand a bus with their nomenclature, and also it's servicing your school?
Yes,
It's
that is
concrete. It's a wonderful billboard.
Yeah, Ms. Marcello, that is a great question. I think that is at the forefront of our board's mind, is how can we eventually follow Legacy and a couple of other schools that do provide transportation. We make no secret about it that we want the school to be available to all. We have scholars in our founding class that represent 9 different zip codes. We're slated to add 2 additional zip codes next year in our new 161 scholars. But for example, we just applied for the State Department hybrid bus that came out. We didn't get it, but we are actively seeking out opportunities to fund the bus until we're projected to have that built into our budget.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And we currently have 297 on our list since there was a report that doesn't reflect 161 coming in. Of that, 98% are fully enrolled. We have 2 scholars that we do not have all documentation from.
I've got a few questions for you, Trevor.
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations. I knew when you did your presentation and you got your charter, I knew y'all were going to do real well, and you've proven me correct. So congratulations, and to Dr. Graham as well. I used to work in Sumter, so I'm just trying to get my mind some areas. Where is this Methodist church? My office used to be on Alice Drive, so I'm just curious, where is it located?
Not too far from your former office. So it is at 211 Alice Drive. So it is like halfway between Dollar General and all the way to Walmart. It's right at the
How close to Alice Drive Elementary School is it?
within a block, walking distance.
Oh, okay.
So the church has significant land where the pumpkin patch has occurred every year. And so
Yeah.
we
I wanna go
anticipate
there.
modulars, our 14 modulars would fit right there with some unused space at the church.
Now, this lease, is it a long-term lease? Do you plan on staying there for a while? Is this just going to be modulars temporarily? Because I've seen some schools that use them for an extended period of time.
Yeah, the plan now is for it to be temporary. When we say temporary, we ideally want to be in that permanent site, the second permanent site at the start of the 2026 school year. That's an aggressive $50 million fundraising campaign that we've embarked upon to provide that for our future academies. But it will be temporary for the next few years.
Okay. I know you mentioned transportation earlier, but well, I guess about 9 years ago, I was involved in a charter school and we had 3 campuses. And you've got to go, there's a lot of connecting the dots between those 3. How do you propose, or how have y'all discussed how you're going to deal with transporting kids or staff or whatever the matter is? You've got a lot of moving parts going on there.
Yes, no doubt about it that we need vehicles, we need buses, we need vans. And so again, that is at the forefront of our board's mind. I don't foresee it happening next school year, but it is our intention to offer some form in year 3. Dr. Graham, did you have anything you want to add on the transportation piece between specifically 15 School Street and Aldersgate?
Yeah, the current way that our model is set up, there's a limited resource sharing that's going on between both sites. So when we look at staffing, they have independent staff, so there's no current plans to share staffing there that are operational and instructional. So they would operate as 2 independent entities, so the transportation on that side will be limited. And long term, as we look at what are the most efficient and affordable transportation options, we're going to keep everything on the table. But knowing that setting up a K-12 network is going to take a lot of collaboration, and the goal is that our network office, which is the office that's staffed by myself, Dr. Ivy, and a couple of other staff members, as we grow, that we try to coordinate all of those resource allocations and really streamline and make it best for kids.
Which also include expanded partnerships with our local public school district. We have been successful, and we wrote about this in our charter application about resource sharing. It's a long process, we all know that, but we celebrate short-term wins. One that's coming up is our first field trip of the year, the only field trip, and we are going to be able to use the local public school district's buses and their drivers. And so really excited to showcase that.
Have y'all contacted OSF yet? I know that gets in the weeds, but OSF is going to obviously have a big say.
Yes.
Facilities have.
Yep, I do know that preliminary conversations have already been had between one of our board directors, Dr. Thompson specifically, and OSF. No documentation has been submitted.
Okay. And just one last question. You mentioned that you're drawing from 9 zip codes. How far out? What's your radius?
Yeah, we have several scholars from Clarendon that travel in, a lot of county kids, which is not what I anticipated. About 43% of our scholars come from the city limits and within our 2.7 square mile core geographic target area of South Sumter, which is what we centered our mission on, but primarily Clarendon, Manning, Turbyville, We had a scholar from Lee County that was in the beginning of the year, and Williamsburg that got in, but never made it to the first day. The Lee Scholar is one of the 13 leavers this year. Transportation was not an issue.
That's about 20 miles, I guess.
We had a set of triplets that got in from Lexington, and the family got orders, and of course we're in a military town, but family got orders. They are one of the 600 that we wrote about in our charter application, military dependents whose children attend public schools outside of Sumter, and we were able to draw in through this promise of choice and empowerment, but orders changed.
All right, thank you. Dr. Graham, do you have anything else you'd like to discuss before we vote?
Not at this time. Really excited about where we are organizationally this year, and looking forward to leveraging increased opportunities to serve scholars in our city.
Thank you. Are there any more comments or questions from the board? All right, I'll call the vote. The motion on the table is to accept staff recommendation to accept the amendment request. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's not opposed. Congratulations.
Thank you, board directors.
All right, we're gonna do a photo real quick. Trevor, let's do a photo real quick. All right, Kristen, are we ready now for High Point?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay, joining us from High Point today, we have Brian Sherman, the superintendent, Matt Nesberg, the board chair, Eduardo Chen, a board member and part of the Mission and Vision Committee, and Katie Nesberg, the executive assistant. High Point Academy, HPA, opened in Spartanburg in the 2014-2015 school year. The school serves grades K through 12 and currently enrolls 1,234 students. High Point Academy requests to adopt a new mission and implement a vision statement for the school. The school maintains that moving away from the current mission statement will not change the direction, educational emphasis, principles, or purpose for HPA. The newly proposed mission is cultivating lifelong learners in a student-centered environment, and the vision to be an exemplary school of choice for academically minded families. HPA's current mission statement, written and adopted prior to the opening of the school, reads as follows. High Point Academy is a community-centered school built on the principles of honor, integrity, and service, where academic excellence, STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math, education in a project-based applied learning style of rigorous, innovative instruction produces an educational environment rich in creativity and achievement. At the heart of our educational mission is the growth and shaping of tomorrow's leaders, challenging to them to dream, desire, and deliver success. Changing the mission statement and adding a vision statement serves multiple purposes. The change sharpens the focus for all stakeholders and draws attention to what the school aims to achieve. HBA seeks to create lifelong learners, adults who will continue to grow beyond high school, whether it is in a vocation or higher education, lifelong learners who know how to adapt and pivot when circumstances suddenly change, such as during a worldwide pandemic or a technological revolution. Secondly, the new mission and vision statement are memorable. The school staff will take ownership of the newly implemented vision statement, and HPA's participants will grasp the mission statement, allowing alignment in moving the school forward in its pursuit of ever-increasing excellence. The current mission statement is too long to remember, to inspire, or to impart clarity of purpose. Thirdly, everyone can understand the new mission and vision statements as well as what those statements mean for the students, families, and the community. By removing educational jargon, all students, parents, and community members understand that HPA is a choice for excellence and it's accessible to anyone who wants to achieve. Lastly, the new mission and vision statements are more appropriate for marketing and fundraising, which in turn helps drive the enrollment and financial sustainability. The recommendation for the new mission and vision statement from staff is approval.
All right, do we have any questions for Christie?
I have a question. The vision statement is what I have trouble with. It says to be an exemplary school of choice for academically minded families. How do you define academically minded? And would that be used as a vision to include children or accept children in the moderate system? Because I don't know how you would define academically minded families. That should be.
Yes, ma'am, I think that might be a question for someone on our call to answer.
Part-time, I have one here to that question. If somebody could repeat that for us, please.
How do you define academically minded families? And will you use that vision as part of the lottery system for enrollment or selection of students?
You might not be able
Oh, it's
to.
not.
That trial run we did might have worked. It isn't.
I just have trouble with the wording school of choice for academically minded students. I see further on you explain that it's for all, but the statement is written means that you're selecting parents based on what you think they might be academically minded, which might be sort of excluding or not inclusive of everyone, because I think everyone is academically minded, but how do you determine that?
So how to define an academically minded phrase during the vision statement?
Yes.
I think that's the number one priority focus of any school, so we wanted to keep that in our vision, but having that well-rounded, with the STEAM, points, sports programs, but the academic-minded families was the number one priority of phrase that we wanted to include in the vision moving forward.
Right, and how do you determine if they're academically minded? Because sometimes people are prejudiced and they think that people might not be academically minded when they are. It's something you can't measure, and something you don't know unless you get to know the people.
Yes, I'll jump in. This is Matt Esper, I'm the board chair at High Point. That statement is not intended to be exclusionary. It's not intended for us to exclude people. It is intended to be inviting for anyone who says, yes, I agree that an educational institution is going to educate my kids. That's what it's not used as a tool for us, is my point, for us to say, oh, these people are academically minded and these people are not. Because that's not what we do.
Right.
We're public school.
But I would feel better if the wording included excellence accessible to all achievers versus to just those that you consider to be academically minded.
Yeah, I hear you. We're not communicating those that we think are academically minded. That's not our intent at all.
Okay. Just looking at it, I would be turned off by it, and I just don't like the wording and the vision. The mission is excellent, but the vision I have trouble with.
But are you finished?
I'm finished.
Let's do, just so we follow procedure, let's have a motion one way or the other, so we can open discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the staff's recommendation for approval, for the addition of mission and vision statement.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, all right. Now,
Let me just offer a frame on this. When I see the word academically, especially particularly in the school choice movement, this is how I'm seeing it, that parents are making a proactive choice. It's not a school that is assigned to it. You're not assigned geographically to a district. So I think of any parent that makes a choice to go to school choice, makes that school choice, that intrinsically is an academic choice, because it's not signing up primarily for a gym or a sports event. It's signing up for the education of your child. So in some ways, I think the word academically can be seen possibly as a wonderful word, because every parent that makes that choice is preeminently making an academic choice, because the school is an academic institution. That's kind of how I would see it, almost as a universal positive. Because it's a school. You go to a hospital because you're making a medical choice.
That's accessible to all the teachers, not just
Yeah.
what you consider to be, because all children, I believe, are academic. I really do.
Yeah, I think
And that,
I don't think that's a choice you make. I think that, if that's the only choice they provide is just that you're academically minded, then that's not really a choice, because I believe that all schools are there for academics,
Yeah.
not just charter schools, all schools.
Oh,
are there for
yeah,
academics.
yeah. But they're making, because it's an academic institution and it's a choice that a parent makes, that's all I'm saying. It's got a certain proactivity in it, because you have to step out and make that choice. And since it's an educational institution primarily, that's how I could see it interpreted.
Not inclusive.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a quick question here. I believe I understand what Dr. Pope and Mrs. Mosteller, as well as Board Chairman Nesberg, are saying. You do see a vision statement as an aspirational statement, which I believe it does. Chairman Nesberg did say that it was not meant to be exclusionary, and perhaps we could solve the conundrum here by inserting the words "and inclusive" following the word "exemplary" in the vision statement. So it would say, to be an exemplary and inclusive school of choice for academically minded families.
but could we do that? Their board had to vote on this. I think their board would have to do that.
They have the choice.
Probably so.
That's what they decided on, but I agree with them.
The way I see, and I understand, and I'm want to be sensitive to everybody on this. And this is just the way I see it. If you don't go to a charter school, you probably go to a traditional public school, if you will. And you go because if you don't, the truant officer comes, well, whatever they call them now. I don't know. I'm showing my age now, but you get in trouble if you don't go to school in a traditional school. But to me, people who actively make the effort and get into and go to a charter school are showing that they're academically minded, because they are looking, maybe it dovetails with what
That's
you're
what I'm saying. That's what I'm
Maybe
trying to say.
it shows their action is showing they're academically minded, because they are making the effort to go somewhere else. Maybe I'm being too simple. I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, have they changed any of their enrollment policy? Is there any change to their enrollment policies? Okay, so there's no change to their enrollment policies.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to be clear.
Yes, sir.
Do we have call for the question?
Let me let Cindy make one more comment.
Isn't it the case that in terms of your exercising your choice, I think to follow up on what Randy said and Jonathan, and what you just said, we are not in the business of amending the verbiage you choose.
No, we can't.
That's right. We don't want to do that, and we applaud you for what you choose.
Okay. All right. So we'll call the motion is to accept staff recommendation for High Point Academy's amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Tom, Michael?
Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Get my stuff together here. This is truly an exciting but difficult time. We've had changes in our funding formula, changes in our budgets. We have a lot of money, a lot of growth going on, so which is great. But I had conversations with 3 different finance directors across the state last night. One with Gray Collegiate, one with Lexington 4, and one in Chester. Everybody's wondering, what are we going to choose? Which funding stream do we use? Which model do we pick? But these numbers we chose the most conservative numbers and revenue estimates. To be honest with you, they probably won't pick up the budget again until after June 14th, which is primary time. So we probably won't get a real good number for our budget probably till the end of June, the last week of June. But again, we used the most conservative estimates on our numbers with our growth and using our projected numbers for the student enrollments. So let's jump right into the revenue side. If you flip over to the first page, and y'all have those in your handouts as well, okay, perfect. Again, we started with the governor's version, moved through the House's version, and then through the Senate. We chose the most conservative version, which is the Senate version. But I do want to mention that we would like the House version to be passed. At every point in this budget, our schools receive additional money at every version. The House version actually gives us about 3.5% more money for our students in our classroom. So that's why we're supporting the House version on that as well. We have one new school for FY22, that's Green Five Forks. Again, we have a new funding model. We have new EFA weightings. They're rolled up lines, so less lines of funding. And one key point for our schools is we now have funding flexibility where our schools can spend the money where they like to. They have flexibility on spending. And the funds truly will follow the student in this new funding model. So we're thankful with that. Let's jump into page 2 where I go in over the revenue numbers. As you see, $55.6 million in EFA funding. This number, the first column is number going to our schools. The second column is the amount of 2% that's withheld on that line. Total proviso funds of $119 million for. EIA funds of $30 million. Additional new formula funding. That is the additional money that comes from the new changes in the weightings of $6.8 million. And this is a new number for us. I don't think in a charter school history, we have gone over $200 million in funding. I believe we're about 190. It's the first time that we've gone over $200 million in funding for our schools. So that's exciting for our schools. Total 2% funds of $4,238,281. Flip over to page 3. I'm going to talk a little bit about expenditure priorities. This budget does a 3% cost of living raise to reward our staff for operational excellence. It also adds additional funds for expansion of the accountability team under leadership of our new Deputy Superintendent, John R. Payne. And also, this budget covers the rise in employee benefits costs. And I'm going to read a statement from PIVA on this because it's very important. This affects everyone's budget across the state, all our state agencies, your county as well, Mr. Chairman. But I want to read a statement about a rise in cost between 14 and 18% of employer benefits costs going up on state. The primary reason for the larger increase in 2023 compared to recent years is because of the substantial COVID-related expenses over the past 2 years. The state health plan had medical claims expense in 2021 that were in excess of what was forecasted when rates were established in the 2021 plan year. The increase in 2021 medical claims expense was a result of 3 main factors: substantial COVID-related expenses, services that were delayed in 2020 because of COVID, and a surge in non-COVID related expenses after the initial lockdown. The plan experienced a net loss in 2021 as a result of the unexpected high claims expense and the use of cash reserves was required to pay claims. Because of 2022 rates were set prior to winter's COVID, we expect a larger net loss in 2022 than 2021. So we're expecting another net loss on the state health plan. This is key for our employees as well. Although employees will not have a premium increase under the version of the budget currently, they will share in additional costs of sustaining the plan
through increases in co-payments and deductibles that will become effective January 2023. So we'll have to plan for that on the employee side. Okay, priority number 3. This budget provides adequate investment in contracts and services to support organizational development, school support services, and operational excellence district-wide. I want to take a minute to highlight some of the district-wide initiatives that we fund in the budget that support our schools statewide. And these are our statewide partners that we provide services throughout the state and that impact our schools. Some of our statewide school support partners, Canty Technologies, they do a wonderful job here with us. They also help our school with IT policies, and they're our security partner. Institutional Compliance Solutions, or ICS, they actually provide Title IX training for all our schools, and we provide that in our budget as well. The National Institute for Excellence in Teaching, or NIET, NIET has worked with more than 9,000 schools across the country to support great teaching and student improvement. The support will include at least one strength-based needs assessment per school and 15 days of coaching and support per school. So we provide that for our schools as well. NWEA, we know that company there. They provide MAC growth, K through 12, connecting MAC growth scores to student learning and student growth and goal setting. We provide that in our budgets for our schools as well. Priority number 4, we've seen a reset in travel costs to align with pre-COVID travel for on-site school support and accountability visits. You know, we've saved a lot of funds over the last 2 years during COVID. We now have to reset our travel costs back to the pre-COVID levels. And you know, we have a rise in fuel costs and inflation costs that are going along with that. An example, our staff does full-day travel to schools to support openings. We will start accountability visits as well. We have graduation visits going on, school closures. So I'll be in Salem, been in Greenville last week. So the travel costs are truly ramping up, and we got to catch up with that. Let's flip over to page 4 while I go through the expenditure objects. Okay, on salaries, we're at $1,696,574, compared to 22 was $1,518,742, or 12% increase. Again, that's for the expansion and the 3% cost of living. Benefits are $644,698 compared to $501,185, or 29% increase. Again, that's with the employer costs added in there as well. Purchase services at $897,008, or a 28% increase there. Property services, building cost right in there, $210,000. That's about a 40% increase, but let me explain something to you on that. As you'll see in my April report, we've already spent $158,000 of our current budget in property services. If we project out for the next 2 months in May and June, we'll be at like 194 for the property services line. So that's why we're budgeting that 210 in that line to make sure we coverage on that. Travel, $175,000 compared to FY22 budget of $113,727. That's at 54% increase. Again, we've spent $79,000 in travel so far. And if you project out for the rest of May and June, we'll probably hit about $110,000 in travel, just because of the increase in fuel costs. So that's why that budget's up to 175. Other services of $400,000 compared to 310 for a 29% increase. Supplies, again, cost of everything we buying is up 125 compared to 77. We've only spent $70,000 on travel so far, but if you project out for the rest of the year, I'm looking at about $86,000 in travel and supplies. And then also, I've made a change in the capital outlay line. I want to create next month, establish a capital reserve fund. And so that's why I moved that capital outlay that we used to budget in the general fund into the capital reserve fund. And then other objects, $100,000 compared to $58,021, or 72%. That's a little high, but right now we spent $55,000 in other objects, and that is related to a lot of dues and fees and memberships. In pre-COVID, we weren't traveling as much, so the conferences weren't making any money. So now when they do select a conference for registration, the cost of the conference registration has gone up. They're trying to make up for not having conferences for 2 years. So that's directly attributable to that. Okay, page 5, it's the revenue and expense summary. Again, it takes the revenue and compares expenditures. Total revenue of $4,248,281 compared to the total expenditures of $4,248,281.66. A revenue increase of 23%, as well with a expenditure increase of 23%, or a balanced budget. Mr. Chairman, that completes my review for the first reading of 23 budget.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Michael?
I do, but I'll make a motion to accept the first reading.
Okay.
Second.
All right. We have a motion on the table. Go ahead.
So quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
Just on the property services line, I know that moving here, they were anticipating, savings. So is this because of the cost of supply? I assume we're talking about this building, right?
Yeah, the property service, let me go through a couple of things. The property service is mainly the utility cost, the cleaning cost, the repairs and maintenance, property insurance. One thing that we did not have when we were leasing, we didn't have to insure a building. I think our insurance payment's about $25,000 just for the liability of the building. So those are just the costs of running the building. I want to create a capital reserve fund that deals with the larger purchases. So that way we can truly see how much it costs to keep the lights on, the water, the sewer, to see how much it costs to run the building every day. And we'll probably have additional property costs because we didn't move in this building until September. We didn't really flex. We were over there most of the time. Now that we're in here, we're having events. Our cost of heating and air is going to increase because we also have to clean the entire building. We weren't using that before. So we'll have to expand our cleaning costs and things like that, and repairs and maintenance as well.
And I would just want to remind the board though, but we also aren't spending $12,000
Yes.
to $15,000 a month like we were before. So that's about $160,000 a year savings.
Right. And we have an asset that's worth well over $3 million, this building property alone. We will be having an appraisal as well to give us a true appraisal.
I also wanted to make note that, the estimates are very conservative. He's using the Senate funding formula plan. Last night, the House in House Budget 2.0 adopted their version of the funding formula, which we actually, under the Senate plan, we see a change of 24% increase in revenue. Under the House plan, we see an increase of about 27.5%.
That's correct.
So if you go back to the expenses, and while the cost of doing business is a lot more, is at 23%, we're to the good 1% under the Senate plan, we're to the good under the House plan by about almost 5%. So it works out nicely that we're not going backwards, we're still going forwards, even though we're increasing some of the team members on the accountability side. And then of course, we're making this building available to all our schools now. Well, there is a cost to that, and you got to clean it, and you got to have air conditioners and stuff like that.
And I think that helps to answer a big part of my question. I think the other is, as in public or when we're asked, okay, the district moved to this new building, it appears if someone was looking at this, they would say, well, your monthly expenses have gone up, to which we would respond, partly what you just said, right? You're making the building available to the schools so that they don't have the cost imposed on them. What are some of the other ways that we would be able to say, no, this was a good fiduciary?
We also own the building now. Before we were paying rent, which was just going out the door. Now we have an asset.
Yeah, an asset that, by the way, the value of it is almost twice now what we're paying.
Yeah.
Just a year later.
Just based on square footage alone, we're at 31,000 square feet in this building.
And I would say you see production go up too. The staff actually can all work together in one building.
Yes.
In the previous small space, the staff couldn't even work all in the same building at the same time. They didn't even have desks. They were all sharing desks. I mean, the staff is able to be more productive and efficient on behalf of providing support for schools because they're all together.
I see him smiling.
Yeah, we couldn't be together before. So while, the maintenance costs and all that are there, and we didn't have those before, the asset and the availability to open it up to our schools for their graduations, for their performances, that makes a big difference. Dr. Pote's organization, they're holding their conference here on Saturday.
She'll be here Saturday morning,
Yeah, so we've opened it up to the community, and that's partly what we wanted to do. At no cost.
No cost. No.
We're not charging anybody anything.
Great. No, thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, so today, the House and the Senate go out of session. When do they come back to conference?
They will not pick it up until after the 14th, Chris, right? Go for conference committee and
We're not going to know anything really until
even our second reading on the 12th, and then we have a third virtual on the 19th. It might be difficult. It might be the week of the 27th.
It's going to be we're going to have to do third reading the last week of June.
Right.
Because they have primary elections on June 14th. They'll come back after that. They'll pass a budget in the last 2 weeks of June, which means this board will have an amended version of the budget. And
Yeah.
we'll see which one they give us. But
Mhm.
either way, either budget is a win for charter schools.
That's correct.
It's more money for charter schools in South Carolina. The money follows the child. And then it's, of course, good for us because we're able to provide higher level of support for all our schools. Of the things that Michael mentioned, like Canty,
Right.
like all the professional development we're now providing our schools, like the testing that we're paying for. Those are all costs that we didn't have before, but we're seeing how it's helping our schools improve. It's helping our teachers perform. I think that's an investment worth making on the part of this district, while it is costing us more.
No doubt.
Kip, do you have any comments? Yes, sir, Kip.
Can I make a comment, please, sir?
Yes.
As a board member, I know that this forum is public, and I would just like to say that one item that impacts our budget, along with every other state agency and every business in the state, is our benefits and our insurance. And we see in our budget a 29% rise in our benefit coverage, some of that of which has to do with our healthcare costs. And currently, there has been a bill on the floor of our state house called a medical care facility of need, of something of that sort. And so that was moving forward to be passed, which would open up additional healthcare providers to come into the state to open up more competition. Our state has one of the lowest competition areas in the country, and we are paying very, very high healthcare costs. I'm very grateful for all of our healthcare providers, but we need more competition. You don't need a certificate of need to open a supply company or to open a QT or anything like that. And they sent this thing to a committee, which basically killed it this year. So I'm going to force a little bit about this. It does impact our charter district, and I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to know if, when you mentioned Canty, some of the primary service providers for us that are very targeted in their expertise, I would enjoy as a board to hear from some of those people, to see some of the things that they do for us in terms of making our product better, more serviceable. I would enjoy the knowledge of that.
Yeah,
Opportunity to
I think that's an opportunity for future board meetings to have somebody like Canty.
Mhm.
By the way, they did present at our leader summit with all our school leaders. I can tell you that the difference I've seen is when I first started 2 years ago, our power school and data was a mess. And one of the biggest complaints I got from all of our schools was about power school. The staff knows it was a disaster. We get no calls because Canty came in, they cleaned it up. They're helping the schools, they're helping the staff. I mean, it's been a difference maker, but I would love to have them come in and present y'all. And then also, this will be a charge for the program team, is to get NWA in here. Maybe we can get them on a virtual, talk about the testing piece and the professional development. And then also NIET, have them do the same thing. Because I want you to hear from them, because they're not only just helping us help our schools, but our schools are seeing increased performance with their kids as a result of what we're offering through these programs. I know it's expensive. It is. And it's an additional cost, but we're seeing an improvement in performance at the school level. And that's what we want to see.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Or I'll call the motion to accept the FY23 budget on first reading. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, okay, I didn't see. All right, so that's unanimous. Thank you. And March and April financial reports, Michael?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I'll go through March first. After 9 months of operation, we expect about 25% of the budget should be remaining. We're currently at 34.74 through March, so we're a little ahead of the game there. Flip over to the first page. That does our income statement for our entire district. Total revenues of $60,149,597. Total expenditures of $60,017,779, or a net of $131,817. If you flip over to the second page, does our district office only numbers. Year-to-date March was $2,347,427 in revenues. Year-to-date expenditures $2,252,384 for a net change of $95,043 positive. That will give a fund balance of $2,684,458. If you look at the comparison to prior year March, you see prior year March was $1,985,254, and the net change of $152,935 on that line. You flip over to the next page on divisional budget. Total leadership year to date, $656,076. And I'll go back and hit some of these negative numbers and explain a little bit. Charter authorizing is $746,756. LEA programs of $359,574. Financial services of $489,978 for a total of $2,252,384. If you go back up to the leadership line, I've color coded those red up there. Those are items that I will take care in the budget amendment next month. We'll clean up that $23,968 in negative there, as well as in the travel and charter authorizing, and in the supplies and materials and charter authorizing. And then a little bit of that 137 down in LEA programs, and benefits of 19 in financial services. So we'll do an amendment in June that will clean up those negatives amongst the divisions. Next report just shows our EIA funding for the year from the State Department. Total funding in March was $32,709,444.08. And you'll see the last report just summarizes that from the State Department side. And you'll see the summary total of $32,709,444.08 to match that number. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the March report.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the March report as presented.
Second. All right. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the April report.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I present the report for period ending April 30, 2022. After 10 months of operations, we expect about 17% of the budget to remain. We're currently at 27.58. First report is district-wide expenditures and revenue. Total revenue of $67,478,569. Total expenditures $67,312,249 for a net difference of $166,320. Flip over to district office report only. Total revenue year-to-date for April, $2,624,396. Total expenditures of $2,499,609 for a net change of $124,787. That project our fund balance of $2,714,202 for the, year-to-date April 2022. The next report goes through our division. Again, total leadership, $798,661. Charter authorizing $822,848. LEA programs of $400,282. Financial services of $477,818. For a total district office expenditures of $2,499,609. And that will leave a remaining of $951,826. And again, I'll go through and we'll do a budget amendment to clean up those negatives on those lines in June. Next report summarizes our EIA for the month of May. Year to date, $32,921,040.66. And then the summary report from the State Department, $32,921,040.66. Mr. Chairman, that completes my report for the month of April.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
The April financial report.
Need a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, that's not opposed. Just quickly, while we're talking about finances, because we're almost at the end of the fiscal year, where do we stand on audit?
We haven't had any work on the audit yet. It'll start in August once we get the final numbers from the State Department, but we are in contact with them if we need anything.
Did you use the same firm?
Same firm as well. Yeah, we did a 2-year contract on that.
Okay.
Renewable every year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Superintendent.
All right, one of the first items that we want to talk about is the closure update for Next. As you know, their board voted to close, and you all confirmed that. So at this time, I'm going to ask Emily Paul to come up and give you the update on the Next closure, and then she'll go right into her LEA program update.
Good morning for one more minute. It's almost noon. So the Next closure protocol truly started about 2 weeks ago. But since 2 weeks, it has been going very smoothly. I have found Dr. Brown over at Next to be very collaborative and just willing to get on the phone with whatever she needs. I do have a weekly meeting with her where we go over weekly assignments for the upcoming week, and then we review her progress from the previous week. And I give any technical assistance that she needs on some of the items that she'll have to complete that week. I also meet with our team internally each week just to make sure that there is nothing kind of popping up that we need to make sure we address with Dr. Brown. So in the last 2 weeks, the school has gotten about 75% of their inventory done. The remaining 25% is still being used for instruction. They do have school until May 26th. So the kids are still in the building using laptops and textbooks and all those things. But 75% is good progress in 2 weeks, so I'm proud of them for that. We also worked out, we had about 8 students that had 1 to 2 credits left before they could graduate. And with Next officially closing business on June 30th, we needed to find a solution for them so that they could do those credits over the summer and still get a diploma by August. Huge shout out to Green, Tom Cronin at Green. He jumped in and was willing to allow those students to transfer to him over the summer. They're going to work on those credits through SC Virtual, and then they will graduate technically from Green. Their diploma does have to say Green because Next will be closed, but they have an opportunity to graduate with a high school diploma. So we were really thankful to Green for helping us work through that and finding a solution for those 8 kids. And then our goal is to get the Greenville campus out by May 30th so that they don't have to make another payment on their lease. We're trying to get state surplus there by May 30th, but it's very, very tight. We are not sure we're going to be able to do that. So we're trying to come up with some plans that if we can't get them out, maybe we can prorate the lease. We're not sure we're going to be able to do that either. So we're just really trying to work on getting them out of there. But again, it's, 20 days away. So we're just not sure we can do that. But things are going really well there now that we have started that. And again, I found the school to be very collaborative, and Michael has been down there a few times getting an eye on everything, and he'll be down there again in a few weeks. So things are going well with that.
Let me just briefly interrupt you.
Sure.
What's their financial position?
So they actually give us weekly metrics, and Michael, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at those. Yeah, so that's one of the things that we check in on every week. So we can, if you want Michael to follow up with you and give you an update on that status, we can do that.
Okay.
And they're projecting all those funds out, so that next release payments are projected through their cash flow through June 30.
Okay.
Any other questions about Next? One thing I didn't mention is that we are also tracking their currently enrolled students to make sure that everybody is getting records requests and placed at a new school for next year. So that's something that we track on a weekly basis as well. All right, so program team updates. Dee Drayton, our Medicaid lady, she has onboarded or will be onboarding an additional 13 schools to bill Medicaid, which is huge. Previous to Dee, we only had about 4 schools billing. So that's a really great opportunity for our schools to increase the revenues. They were already providing the services. So it's just a matter of getting that paperwork done and starting to bill for services. So we're really proud of Dee's work on that. We have hired a new school psychologist coordinator. She will be starting in July. So you will probably meet her at our August board meeting. But she is there just to help us support our schools in identifying and evaluating our students with disabilities and making sure that our multi-tiered systems of support are in place and appropriate for our kids. I would like to have Tracy and Tatiana stand for just a moment. There are some folks in this room that know our history in Title I. You've been here for a while, and actually when John Payne was at the State Department, we were at a table together discussing this.
You're on opposite sides of the table.
Yeah, yes, we were on opposite sides of the table. Title I has not always been great around our district, but we just had an audit, and the audit came back all clear. Absolutely no findings. So I'm so proud proud of Tracy and Tatiana. I just wanted to have them stand for a minute and be recognized because that was a lot of hard work and it has been a long road. So I'm really proud of them about that. So thank you. Let's see. Federal funds. So we are in the time of year where we are begging our schools to spend and submit their reimbursements. They all need to spend their funds by June 30th, and then they have until July 10th to get their reimbursement claims into us, which then sets off a load of work for us. We have to get turned around to the State Department by August 15th. So we are working with our schools, making sure that all those funds get spent down and are claimed appropriately. And then finally, you guys heard that we had our Teacher of the Year, Deion Jamison, be chosen for the State Teacher of the Year. The following week, we had to go through the process again and choose this year's District Teacher of the Year. So we were able to go down to Bridges and recognize Juliana Smith, who will be our District Teacher of the Year for next year. So we're really proud of her. And I just want to shout out Emily for running a rigorous process there. It's a lot of work. And it was just a really exciting time to go down to Bridges and get to recognize her in front of her staff and her students. And so that was really nice. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll call on John R. Payne, our Deputy Superintendent of Sponsor Performance, for an update.
Good afternoon, Chairman Payne, members of the board. I'm excited for my first address to you as Deputy Superintendent of Sponsor Performance today to talk briefly about the work that we've been doing, a little bit on authorization, but more so on our work with accountability, outline a course forward with some detail, and then we're going to ask for our next board meeting perhaps to involve you in an exercise or two as we think about framing out this accountability system. In terms of the authorization work very quickly, we are really excited. As you all know, at last month's board meeting, we approved 4 charter schools to join us. And so Ms. Farmer has been working diligently to set up a celebration luncheon to welcome those board committees to come meet with us, with Superintendent Neely, to celebrate, to begin building that relationship, and then begin talking with them in June, which is earlier, my understanding is, than we traditionally have, but just go ahead and start outlining the kinds of things that they need to be attending to so they're ready to start school in the 23-24 school year. We'll also be onboarding our new coordinator to assist Ms. Farmer in June as well. And so we're excited to have that individual start. In terms of the accountability work, as you all know, in South Carolina at the state level, we have one state and federal accountability system that meets the federal requirements and the state requirements. But this system that we have in place is not enough to inform us with the information that attends to the uniqueness of charter schools. And that's why, of course, we're compelled in the Charter Act to create an innovative system for accountability. So in my 6 weeks here as part of the team, I've been working with staff in a host of activities to better learn where we are, where we're going, what we want to accomplish. In addition, I've conducted a landscape review of other states that have authorizers similar to South Carolina to see what they do, as well as looking at a number of resources that are available online. This phase 1 or pre-planning phase, again, has really been having internal discussions and meeting, doing exercises with staff, putting together some blueprints for priorities, and consulting with the State Department of Education. The next step in this with our accountability work is set to happen during the summer is to extend some of these priority exercises and invite all of our school leaders and their boards to complete it and think about what's important with them. Often when we create accountability systems, there's a tendency to start in the weeds and work our way up. But I posit a different approach. I think, and this work is supported by the National Center for Assessment, which is the national leader in state assessments and accountability systems, that, let's talk about and start with what do we prioritize? What do we value? What are the things that are important? Then coalesce around those at a broad level, and then work our way down into sort of the details or the weeds. In addition to getting the feedback from all the schools within our portfolio, we will also establish a core focus group that's going to be representative of all stakeholders, most importantly, members from our schools, to meet during the summer. And the purpose of these meetings will be to, think about priorities, establish expectations, timelines, indicators, review annual reports generally, think about how can we deploy most accessibly training on data-driven decision-making, implementation science, and developing and implementing SMART goals, and finally contemplating what kinds of levels we'll have in our system, what kind of supports, and that sort of thing. The third phase then, of course, would be the implementation, and we'll finalize that work as we have those discussions over the summer. The model that I use, and I've used it in previous experience in my professional career, is a model called Leading by Convening. It's a stakeholder engagement model, which seeks to bring people around, coalesce around issues, so it's not a one-directional, this is what we're going to do, from kind of a top-down approach. It's let's come together and talk about it and come to some consensus, and then make a series of recommendations from a core team to a next layer and then to the general public. And so in doing so, there's a significantly higher amount of stakeholder engagement and involvement with that. There's more ownership to it. And I just think that's a better approach. In terms of what we set up, I have a couple of things that I just would like to touch on very briefly. One, I hope that the system that we're able to put in place is not a one and done. With the state accountability system, it's kind of wait till the end of the year and you find out if you're excellent all the way down to unsatisfactory. We don't do that instructionally as teachers. We monitor and adjust as we go along. So I'm hoping that the system that we put in place is going to be able to give us sufficient detail so that we can progress monitor monthly to quarterly our schools and be able to give them feedback. So if we do see issues, it's not a wait till the end and guess what, here's what we found. It would be an approach where we could provide some technical assistance and support to our schools to hopefully address whatever any issues that we may see or celebrate successes that they're already experiencing. But with the non-negotiable that we have high expectations for all students, as well as all of our faculty and the staff who serve them. Oftentimes with accountability systems, it's kind of two parts statistics and psychometrics and two parts sorcery and Greek. I say that to say if you've ever read the state ESSA consolidated plan, I have, unfortunately. I think this is where some of my white hairs come from. Nobody understands it. And it really takes someone with significant amount of understanding of statistics and psychometrics. And I think that prohibits oftentimes from families. And I shared this publicly in a number of events, so I'm not saying anything out of turn. So I hope that in our system that while we may have some calculations involved, it's one that our parents and our stakeholders, our business, everyone involved can readily understand and get behind. Third, I believe in terms of school transfer or school improvement, all schools can improve, even high functioning ones. And so really attending to how can we improve all of our schools, not just targeting the low performing or the ones that have problems. But also at the same time incentivizing the kinds of actions or activities that we want to have taken place. So that maybe if you didn't meet the mark, but you're still improving, that's going in the right direction. Fourth, I think, as you know, we have a diverse portfolios of schools within the charter school district. So I think it's important that our system be flexible enough to attend to the uniqueness of our schools, but have some elements that are fixed so we can look to see how our schools are doing. I think that's a very doable task. Again, we want our teachers to personalize learning for our students, meet them where they are, and then create a series of supports and interventions for them. I would recommend we do something very similar from our perch. And finally, while I prize quality urgency, I want us to attend to the implementation challenge that's true in any situation, which is doing it right versus doing it right now. And I would argue that, let's look at this and do it right, but also have the degree that we can go back, as we do as educators, monitor and adjust and make improvements to the system. So for next month's meeting, I'm going to share with you for your feedback two exercises. One gives you 5 fictional high schools and just asks you to rank them. This is the one I would prioritize the most, or I would say the best, or I value the most, the 5 being the one that you least. And then ask you to contemplate, why did you pick that school? We did it with staff, and we had at our all-staff meeting and had some really good discussion around what each of the staff members, kind of valued. And I think I hope the same of you. Then I've also taken putting together a number of documents, a little bit longer, and ask you to prioritize and think about some of the things that might go into our system. So for example, we have a state report card system. So how much of that is braided in our system or how much is just our own? And so there's a number of things really to think through. So there's quite a bit of work to do in the interim, but I appreciate your thoughts. I will share before I close that on Monday, we will also welcome aboard our data manager who will be assisting me in running reports and working with our schools, provide them working in collaboration. And it's just fortuitous that their data manager and one of our county representatives have worked together in the past and have a very close working relationship. And so we're excited to have our data manager join. But with that, Mr. Chairman, I would welcome any thoughts, criticisms, questions that you or other board members may have.
Any questions? Yep.
I'll just say what a substantive report. It's just very contentful, so, and groundedly aspirational, I think. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I would just add, as you can tell, the whole staff is stepping up their game. We recognize we can always be better. Our schools can definitely be better. And I think this whole effort on the accountability piece, it's going to be a total team effort. The entire staff, the board, working with all our school communities, because we want that collaboration. We want the input so we can be the best we can be as a district. So we're raising the bar. And I think that's what our state leaders expect. And it's what we should expect of ourselves. And of course, I know it's what our schools expect of themselves. So John, thank you for that. Emily, we appreciate the shout outs. I just want to echo with Tracy and Tatiana on the Title I. That's a big deal. Dr. Pope, you know that. I mean, that's important. And so I appreciate the hard work that's going into that. And then Dee, stand up, because some of the board members might not know you. Go ahead and stand up. I mean, Dee, how many days have you been on board now? How many, it's been 2.5 months. So we've gone from 4 schools interested in Medicaid to 13 new schools. Guys, that's what we want to do is educate our schools on the opportunities. We've got students we're trying to serve. These are dollars being left on the table that our schools can use to provide more services. So Dee, thank you for the great work you've done just in a short 60 days. We appreciate that. Few items just to catch you up on. Of course, last week was a big week for Deion Jamison of Legacy to be named Teacher of the Year. That was big for charter schools, but quite frankly, it's big for the entire state of South Carolina. He broke a lot of glass ceilings last week with that announcement. He's got a statewide platform to represent charter schools and to talk about choice, and being the best we can be for students. And I was just so happy with him. We were the team. We were with him and his mother last Wednesday night when it was announced. And I mean, it's just tremendous. When you listen to his story, growing up in a small town in Orangeburg County at 200 people, and didn't aspire to be a teacher at first, and then found this calling, found his voice, and he is literally, when you see him teach in his classroom up there in Greenville at Legacy, I mean, he's not just a teacher. The relationship that he is building with his students, he's like a father, an uncle, a friend that many of these kids don't have in their homes. And so he's changing lives, not just in terms of their academic performance, but he's changing the trajectory of their lives. So just kudos to Deion and what a great thing for this district, but all schools in the state. And then, of course, Juliana Smith at Bridges. We went there on Monday and to see and celebrate with all their students. They were there. It was tremendous. And she's a special education teacher. So again, highlighting the uniqueness of what she offers. And she's kind of like a spy in the classroom. You don't even know she's really there, and you don't know which students in the class have special needs because of her unique way of approaching students in the classroom. That's the way it should be. We want inclusion. The budget, I appreciate your support of the budget. I do believe it's going to change, but I think it's going to change even better. We'll see what the legislature does. I was hoping we would have a budget by now, but they're going to sine die today, come back after the elections in June. Either way, it's a win for charter schools and for the students that we serve. One's a little better than the other, but we'll take either one. The only fix that we're working with staff at the legislature on is both of them. One's a little vague on this. The Senate one is a little more clear, but not in a good way for charter schools. It's a requirement that projections of enrollment be based on the previous 135-day count. That's a problem for us because new schools don't have a 135-day count. But leaders understand the problem and they're working with us on a solution. We want to just be exempted from that requirement and let us use projections. It all washes out once you start school and you get past 45 days. We're excited, and we mentioned this too. You know, we had MAC here last night. They'll be here again tonight for a performance. We've got high school graduations coming up here in this building. We said all along, one of the things we wanted was to have a place where our staff could all work together at one time, and we want to open it up to our schools and let it be a free place where they can open it up to their families to come and celebrate and do performances and so forth. And I'll just remind you that, you know, this building, we got it on the cheap. One of our partner, you know, school districts across the river, they just opened their brand new district office and performing arts center, which is what this is. And they spent $52 million and we spent $1.4 million. And we're a district almost 3 times the size of that district. So think about that. That's the difference in charters. We're looking for ways to maximize return on investment, but at the same time, save taxpayers money. Want to give you an update on the transfer school situation. I'm going to read a little bit from my notes here, but it's been a while since we've had a public update on what is the situation with the 2 schools that have requested transfer. So just to take you back, February 18th of this year, we were informed by Eastlink and Charleston Advancement that they wanted to transfer. They had missed the deadline. As you know, we have a 3-year policy that you have to submit your request for transfer by October 1st, and they did not meet that requirement. They asked for our board to waive that requirement, and of course, you did not, because we were told we need to stick with our policy, follow the process. Then in late February, the 2 schools sent a letter informing the district it had terminated its contract and intended to transfer to Limestone anyway. Then on March 28th, the district responded by informing the schools that it did not recognize the unilateral termination and informing the schools all assets of the schools will become property of the district. The district then requested a response by April 5th of this year. On April 5th, CAA and Eastlink decided they would discuss the issue and respond after their respective April board meetings. So far today, we've received no response. And currently in both the House and Senate versions of the budget, there are no funds allocated to Limestone Charter Association for either of those 2 schools. Obviously, we'll continue to keep you updated. Just a reminder, the fiscal year ends June 30th. We won't have a state budget till the end of June, but you know, in my mind, it's just too late for anything like this to happen. They didn't follow the process, didn't follow, you know, the procedures, and we'll go into the new school year with those 2 schools as part of our portfolio, and we will continue to support them and help them be the best that they can be. Just yesterday, Dr. Billy Strickland was finally approved by the South Carolina Senate, so he will join you as a representative for SCASA on the board. We're just waiting at this point for his certification from the Secretary of State's office. I'm hoping that will come in time for him to participate in the June board meeting. But you all got to meet Dr. Strickland last board meeting, and he's going to be a great contributing member to this board, great colleague for all of us, and of course just brings a wealth of superintendent and principal experiences in the state of South Carolina. He's very well respected. I'm looking forward to having him. Quite frankly, I've already asked him to be a mentor for me as well. That's the end of my report. I'll take any questions from the board at this time.
I don't have a question. I've just got a comment going back to the District Teacher of the Year from Bridges. Guess it was 9 years ago, as you know, my children went to that school and I was on the board there. And when that school opened, we had SPED issues. And I learned quickly as a board member that SPED will get you shut down quicker than that. And so we had those issues. So now, fast forward a few years, to have the teacher of the year be a SPED individual, just, I think is wonderful. Because I know where they were and now I know where they are, and they've come 180 degrees.
Yeah, I think what's unique, and of course, these teachers, when they get this honor, I mean, they earned it. You know, this is not just given to them. They flat out earn it. It's competitive.
What's the process? I don't know how.
So I'm going to ask Emily Baker to come up here and speak to the process, but, you know, we've got 1,000 teachers in the district. So, you know, she beat out 1,000 teachers to be our district teacher of the year.
Good afternoon. Our district identification process is each charter identifies their school level teacher of the year. That school level teacher of the year then has the option to participate and put their name in the hat in the running for the district teacher of the year. So this year we had 14 applicants submitted for district teacher of the year. That process is we have a team that reviews their very lengthy portfolios. It's about 7 different narratives that they submit. It mimics the state teacher of the year identification, so we kind of get their narratives to see how they will present at the state level as well. So we have a team that rubrics their narrative, their portfolio submission. That identifies the top 5. Then we have the top 5 that come into the office. Well, this year we were finally able to be back into the office, which was nice. And we have a separate team that interviews that top 5. So from that top 5, we then use that interview. We have a rubric during that process that we then name our district teacher of the year. This year we had kind of a tie at the end. Their portfolios and their interviews scored exactly the same. So we went to a classroom observation video that we rubriced then to decide between those final 2.
It
exactly
I served on the selection process for the finance for state teachers of the year. So that process is very.
And you know what's good about following the state process is it prepares whoever the eventual winner is for the next level, which is at the state. So like Dion will then compete nationally for National Teacher of the Year. So, you know, we're going to continue to mentor and work with our teachers of the year, both at the state level, but also at the district level. One last thing I failed to mention, Campbell put a handout at the podium there at the desk. It outlines all the upcoming school visits that are coming up and all the graduations. And we wanted to make sure you had that list. If there are any that work with your schedule, Kip, we'll make sure you get a copy if you haven't already received an email. But I would encourage you, if you can participate in any of these graduations and events. I know Randy Page was over at Greenville Tech Charter High School this week, but we would encourage y'all to come and be with us. We'll have representatives from the district team at all of these functions, either in a speaking role at graduation or just, you know, on behalf of the entire staff and the district. But I would encourage y'all to try to make those that are in your area if you can. I just think it's important for our district board and staff to be present so that our schools can feel supported and so our families can see that, you know, we're engaged at the school level. If you've got any question about any of those, we can obviously offline talk with you about those. Any other questions?
Superintendent Neal, I don't have any questions. Just wanted to make a couple of comments. You know, speaking personally, I just want to thank you and your staff for the incredible job that they do day in and day out. I believe, you know, what we receive as a board is exemplary in its preparation and its thoroughness, its detail. And I just wanted to personally say thank you to you and your team. And then I think I would also be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the role of the board liaison, who, you know, puts up with a lot of weird questions. And Campbell, we really appreciate your willingness to help us, and, you know, wanted to congratulate you on receiving your master's, even though it's from Carolina. I still wanted to say thank you and congratulations.
I think that was well said. Campbell's done a great job, I think, as board liaison. I hope you all feel better prepared. I know I've gotten good feedback about getting the printed copies. I hope that helps. Not everybody has a, big, large Xerox printer at home where you can print it all out. But Teresa's his partner in crime on that as well. So it's the two of them that make that happen. And of course, they get the rest of the information from the staff. But yeah, I appreciate that. And I did tell Campbell that he could continue his education at Clemson University with a PhD program. I would be happy to help him with that. Pending any.
My son was a Duke, so you can also go to Duke.
That's right. You could go to Duke. That's exactly right. If there are no further questions of me, that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any other questions or comments? All right. We'll adjourn. Thank you for your attendance.
And we do have lunch for you all.